Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. This watch was launched at Basel World 2014. It is the Omega Seamaster Diver 300-meter GMT Chronograph. It is all that, and it is more. A coaxial chronometer and a dive watch to boot. This is probably the most elaborate and complicated Seamaster you can buy without signing up for some kind of high horology limited edition. So right here we have a 44mm steel case. It's 17.8mm thick. It is 52mm from lug to lug, but if you include the end links to the bracelet, it's a beefy 56.3mm across the wrist. This watch demands a large wrist. On my 16cm circumference wrist, and by the way, the space between the lugs is 21mm, but on my 16cm circumference wrist, you can see it works, but any smaller, and I would have issues with overlap. It's pushed right out to the edge of my wrist, and you can see it's borderline, but it fits. If your wrist is larger than mine, game on. If your wrist is the same size as mine, you may want to buy and then use our 7-day no questions asked return policy if you don't like the fit. If your wrist is smaller than mine, go for a different Seamaster. And you can see it's not going to fit underneath a dress cuff. Taking a quick look at the bracelet, this bracelet has evolved since the Seamaster Diver 300-meter first debuted in 1993. It's become sportier over time with a more squared off profile link. The link profile on the edge used to be a little bit rolled like a dress watch. Now it's more squared off to the side. We still have polished intermediates, giving a bit of a dressy air in spite of the fact that this is a sports watch bracelet. Big upgrades. We have removable links fixed by screws. On my old 2001 Seamaster, of course, they were pin sleeves. There's a more modern and robust construction. You can also see that there's a little micro link in each side, and we've got the legendary Omega thick gauge steel fold out dive extension. Still retains snappy tolerance. Thick gauge steel for the clasp and the swing arm as well. A single fold deployant, twin trigger release for security. It's an attractive little bevel on the exterior shoulder of the clasp, and then you can see the engraving is still very deep. This watch has been rarely, if ever, refinished. We have the standard lyre style lugs that bevel inward and bevel outward. The outward bevel is polished all the way along the case flank from side to side. We have a satin finished mid case on both sides. What appear to be screw down chronograph pushers are not. Those are little shoulders to protect them and brace them, but you can operate the chronograph without screwing the pusher shoulder in or out. And the watch remains 300 meters water resistant in spite of that. We have a screw down crown. You can see that the profile of the pushers blue to match the blue ceramic insert of the diving bezel, unidirectional rotating dive bezel, and 120 click. That's a very pleasing click. I will say, however, the Diver 300-meter has a shallow knurling that makes it a little bit hard to manipulate the bezel when your hands are wet, sweaty, or gloved, so set the bezel before your dive. Let's do a quick loom shot. By the way, the ceramic bezel insert, very scratch resistant. And you can see that there is a differential loom used. The minute hand and the bezel pearl are green, so you can read them relative to each other and quickly ascertain how much of your dive has passed. Everything else is in blue, and you'll note how extensively loomed it is, including the second time zone and the sub-registers. So the watch has a lot of luminescence on a matte blue dial base. All of the indices are appliqué and polished. We have a little constant seconds register that is minimized because it's not super important, but it is loomed, so you know, chronograph running or not, that the watch is operating before you dive with it. A lovely garnishing of yellow for contrast there. All the hands are white varnished with the exception of the tip of the chronograph seconds in the second time zone. The watch does have 2 time zones. There's a 24-hour scale as well as the standard applique 12-hour format. Now you can jump the local time back and forth. You can even move the date forward and backwards as you move east and west. The watch still keeps running. You don't affect the minutes hand, the second time zone, or the chronograph seconds. Now, of course, you can pull the crown out all the way. Now you engage hacking seconds, and everything moves in sync and the seconds hand stops. The watch is 300 meters water resistant, and it has a helium escape valve. So if you are a saturation diver and helium gas accumulates in your watch during a dive, open that little crown before you dive, and when the internal pressure of the watch exceeds external by 2 to 3 bar, then the internal part of the valve opens and releases the helium. You can't see what's in the watch, but I can tell you. Seamaster or hippocampus atop an Omega Caliber 3603, which is a Frederic Piguet 1285, which is actually a high horology movement related to the Frederic Piguet Blancpain 1185. So this is the 1285. It is an upgrade in many ways. It's thicker, it's more robust. Here, automatic winding. It has a 55-hour power reserve, a stop seconds, independently settable 12 and 24-hour time zones, 5-position adjustment, COSC chronometer certification, a George Daniels-style coaxial escapement for improved power reserve, minimal maintenance, and improved chronometry. It pivots on 37 joules, and it is free-sprung for durability. It uses a column wheel for chronograph operation, so a very crisp and sharp-sounding action, and then it also uses a vertical clutch, so the chronograph starts without any jump or stagger, and if you prefer, you can leave the chronograph running full-time without additional wear and tear to the movement. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.